So the topic for today, which I'm really excited about, is how to find and leverage your power. I want to start this conversation with two quotes. One is from Abraham Lincoln. Nearly all men can stand adversity, but if you want to test a man's character, give him power. And the other one is by the writer Elizabeth Gilbert, who wrote Eat, Pray, Love. I met an old lady once. She was almost 100 years old, and she told me there are only two questions that humans have ever fought over all throughout history. How much do you love me? And who's in charge? So power. I have a really awkward relationship with power. I don't know how you guys feel about it. Growing up in a Vietnamese family where girls are taught to be dutiful and obey, I was always called Yu, which is by my mother, which is a Vietnamese word for being outspoken. And, the fact that I always stuck up for myself. The rough translation of Yu basically means angry. Angry and power kind of being synonymous. And it had the connotation of being too strong. So my mom wanted me to be a good Vietnamese daughter and marry a Vietnamese doctor. And in order to do so, I had to be more feminine, less yu. So I have this love and hate relationship with power, right? Mainly because I spent most of my life rebelling against power and sticking up for those who are disenfranchised. However, I also had this realization that without power, it's much more difficult to make true change and impact, whether it's in the corporate world or in society, right? So having power means having a voice. Having a voice means having the ability to access those in power and to be in a position of power to make change, which also takes me to power in the corporate world and the subtle ways we undermine our power, men and women. A few years ago, I was with Shelly Zales. I'm sure a lot of you guys know her. She's the CEO of Female Quotient. She's amazing. We were at this training this was when I was a general manager of See Her, and we were at Anheuser-Busch. And initially I sat in the back of the room because I wanted to make sure the CMO of Anheuser-Busch and his staff got seats. Shelly looked at me from across the room and she said, "Come over here." So I came over and she whispered in my ear, "You always have to get a seat at the table." She said, "Don't shrink yourself. Never, ever do I want to see you volunteer to take notes at a meeting. You're an executive." And, I was just kind of a little shell-shocked, but I understood what she was trying to say. And I'm not sure if you guys have heard of the Xerox machine study, where these researchers set up a scenario where colleagues had to go to a party. And at the last minute, a junior colleague shows up in a panic with a broken Xerox machine. The automatic stapler didn't work. And so what happened was the women who went to the party instead of helping, that employee, the employee, were called mean and unhelpful or unpleasant by the research subjects. The men were not judged at all. This is all to say that power is complicated. It's different based on your gender and sometimes your race. I personally am conflicted as I like being helpful, and that's part of my identity. Does that mean that I can't be helpful if I want to be powerful? Or do I have to kind of sit on my chaise and get fed grapes? And that's the connotation of power. So before I introduce Adrian, I want to give you, if it's okay with you guys, I want to read you this poem because I think it really helped me clarify power and why it's important. And this is by Marianne Williamson. You might be familiar. She actually ran during the Democratic primaries as well, but she's a well-known author. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it is in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. Okay, so without further ado, I'd like to introduce the amazing Adrienne Wallace. Adrienne has served many leadership roles, CEO and executive directors at Girls Inc., VP at EMI, Warner Media, CMO at BOMO, and most recently, senior advisor at Facebook. I first met Adrienne probably around 6 years ago when I was leading membership at the ANA, and she was leading a team at Diageo focused on purpose to profit. She managed a $253 million advertising budget. The first time I met Adrienne, my first thought was, wow, she has such presence, poise, she's damn powerful. And I've always admired people who exude power. I liken myself to the nerdy librarian, no offense to any librarians that might be on this call. But when I walk in a room, I think the air I'm going for is middle-aged soccer mom. So I'm really impressed when I see people who have that kind of presence. And I always gravitate towards people who have that kind of it factor. So Adrienne, when we were first discussing, and if you want to kind of put yourself off mute, when we were first discussing the topic for this Let's Talk call, you had suggested the topic of how to leverage your power. And a few days later, I had a conversation with one of our Let's Talk community members, and she said, the topic is really great, but the question I have is, how the heck do you even find power, let alone leverage it? So we changed the talk to how do you find and leverage your power. So without further ado, tell us a little bit more about your history and how you've been able to both find and leverage your power.
Gosh, so it comes very early. First of all, thank you for that introduction, and thank you all for being here. I feel more powerful because as I scroll through the community of faces that were responding to our 1 to 10 fingers, there were a lot of these, right? And at a time like this, that feels really good. So for me, power is something that it comes in two forms. It's something that's cultivated in you, and then it's something that once you acknowledge that it's cultivated, which means that you have to be a person of grace, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. Once you acknowledge that it's been cultivated in you, you have to curate it throughout your life, through all the fibers that make up the blanket of what is your life. So let's just, get down to basics. In physics, power is the amount of energy that you transfer that's converted over a period of time, over a unit of time. And I always think about things like that because I, as an undergraduate, went to an engineering school. So I still have very much the mind of an engineer. But as a noun, I understand power to be much of what you've talked about, Lan, but more definitively, your ability to do or to act, your capability of accomplishing something, whether it's in your family, in politics. Right now, we think about national strength, we think about the balance of power, and really possessing things that people perceive as powerful, whether it's a home, a car, money, social status. But also our words. I mean, we, especially in this captivating time of COVID, I find that words have tremendous power and that we're all reacting to that. So for me, very early on, power is effectiveness of cultivation. I come from a Caribbean family, so I'm a first generation American. I think about who helped me cultivate my power. So who are the farmers? So as a toddler, my grandmother teaching me the song, Jesus Loves Me, right? Come from a Christian family. In 6th grade, my teacher, Dolores Stevens, I talked to Lamb last week about Dolores Stevens, who I'm obsessed with. Where did she end up? How old could she possibly be? And in my head, I know that she's probably long gone. Who looked at me and said, you is the first person I remember using the word powerful to me. After an oratory contest, I'm 10 years old, and she said to me, 11 years old, and she said to me, you are one of the most powerful little girls I've ever seen. And that stuck with me. My dad, that when I was budding breast, so all the men on here, cover your ears. When I was budding breast and coming into puberty at age 12, and he was looking at me, he said, you are a beautiful girl, and you're gonna start getting different attention. And he opened his, glove compartment and tapped on a weapon and said, don't ever let anyone mistake you for a victim. So for me, early on, power and the notion of power and the notion of how strong I was and how I was being identified came very, very early. Just that cultivation of different people, obviously different energies, between my grandmother, who's teaching me how to sing Jesus Love Me, a teacher who sees me as a scholar and an orator and tells me I'm powerful at 11, and my dad, who a year later sees me budding breast and becomes probably the fearful dad and says, don't let anybody mistake you for a victim. I understand that now better, as I'm teen years old, but I certainly didn't quite know what it was about then. And so it's led me to a journey of understanding better myself as a woman. I also spiritually, in terms of cultivation, spiritually subscribe to an understanding of who I am as a woman. My father didn't know quite the right way, but I think he was recognizing the divine feminine emerging in me and wanted that protected. So me as a woman, evaluating and understanding for me spiritually, what is the divine feminine, and exploring that spiritually in different ways. And exploring it in different ways, not just what resonates with me and my Christian grandmother that taught me Jesus loves me, but I thought about my Hindu girlfriend who's from Guyana and has East Indian parents, and, taught me about Kali, who is the most powerful of the goddesses, and she is Shakti, and she uses that as a name, a nickname for me, which is a woman who is just in her great power and understands her goddesshood. And then finally, the Bible, looking at other women in that sacred text and trying to be, I did this for patience, because I know that through my life and through my career, and even through my schooling, because I had 7 years of schooling, that I'm ever patient like Ruth, and trying to model that in my life, and trying to model love and kindness and act in a way, and I hope that the people who know and love me would say that I act in a way that I promote the love, kindness, and well-being in others. And so that basic aspect of me is not something that just my friends know or just my family members know, just people who are intimate with me know, but it's something that I've taken with me comfortably into corporate America. I've had a confidence. So confidence is power. So that cultivation created a confidence that I powerfully go into a space and people come to me, in confidence, whether they're having an issue at work or on a project that we're working on, or they're having a personal issue that may be impacting the work. So I know, in essence, just as a person without the trappings, never mind what LinkedIn says, never mind the great things that Lan may have told you about my resume, that I am as a human powerful in spirit, and that I've been cultivated in a powerful way. I also recognize that some people weren't as fortunate as me to have the ability to reference grandmother speaking life and 6th grade teacher speaking life and daddy being protective and girlfriends who regard you and teach you about goddesses and remind you of your power. So I realize that other folks don't have that endowment, and I take that realization especially into my work life. So when I'm managing other people, I take that into my work life. There's something I do before I get to the business of work. I do it every morning, and before I literally have my first business call or before my first Zoom call nowadays, I do this, and I do something called the oath of manifestation. And so if you will all bear with me, I'm gonna share that with you now. And the oath of manifestation says, I accept and receive unexpected good, unexpected money, unexpected love, unexpected kindness, unexpected generosity, unexpected offers, unexpected prosperity, coming in unexpected ways from unexpected places in my life and in the life of others. I am constantly guided and boldly empowered to receive lavish abundance of the universe. I accept the principle that abundance and prosperity have already been given to me. My acceptance makes it real. And it opens the space for manifestation to rush in. I open wide the doors of my consciousness to receive and to give. It is done now. Now, through this oath of manifestation, all things are possible. I declare absolutely that I live in a friendly universe that is always providing for me. I feel it powerfully happening now. I can afford anything I desire. In fact, I am so prosperous that I never need worry again. I declare absolutely that I will receive more abundance and I'm able to give more abundance than I have ever experienced before. I'm grateful for all that I have, grateful that all that I'm ready to give is here. I keep myself lifted in high consciousness, no matter what the appearances are. I know that God is all there is. And so I say, let the God times roll. And so it is. So I enter each and every day, and I tell you all this honestly, with a prayer, with an affirmation, with this oath of manifestation. And then I go about my day and I let my schedule take hold and I let time take hold. And whatever comes, what may, in spite of my preparation, I know that I'm able to powerfully accept that. And so the other part of it I said is, so cultivation. So for me, it's what you've been given early on in your life, that kind of early personal mentorship and sponsorship, whether it's grandmom or mom or dad or a brother or sister, a good friend. And then you have to curate whatever it is you get. And it's not about observing what other people have. Your power is in what you do with what you get. We are all curators. We are all fashioned by a source that is a big show off. Gave us 10 fingers, most of us, 10 toes, 2 eyes in our head, connected to a really grand brain if we decide to use it. And so I, in curating that, decide that in my life, in my personal life and in my work life, there's not a lot of separation. The same voice that you're hearing now that's kind of strong, I'd like to think, is what the children in my life, my parents hear, everyone hears. Some people think it's a tone, and it's a powerful tone. Yesterday, someone told me that my tone is something on a church call, no less, a board call with our Christian education board, that some people are afraid of me by virtue of my tone, by virtue of my diction, right? And I hear that and I respect that, but I hold on to my power and I curate my power because I don't falter from that voice no matter what room I go into. So Lan says, oh, I thought this of her and I thought that of Adrienne. But, it's kind of easy to make assumptions about me because I'm really tall. I'm 5'9", 5'9.5", and some of you have seen me in person in 3 to 4 inch heels with no shame about that. So I think in curating my power, it's just owning my voice, being comfortable in my skin, and really so it is. So in a social context, I've applied it to my life, and I look at other women, particularly, sometimes some men, because there are men that have influenced me. They've been my bosses. But I haven't had any real women bosses influence me. So I look at other women, and I've looked at women like Indra Nooyi, who I met shopping in Greenwich at Saks Fifth Avenue, who bowed to me, right? And then I look at women like Ursula Barnes, who was at Xerox. And I'm boldly empowered. Boldly empowered, as the Oath of Manifestation says. So I talked to Indra while we were Christmas shopping, and she was with her mentee Christmas shopping. And I sent an email many, many years ago when I was at Diageo to Ursula Burns and says, when are you not in Rochester? Can I walk across the cross yard? Because you are at Xerox and I'm at Diageo, and our corporate offices are in the same office park. And she said, by all means, come, let's have lunch. And I brought her a salad, shortly before she retired. So I just am unafraid, by virtue of how I was cultivated, to curate my power. And so I think we owe it to ourselves to really be gracious and consider what points of light did other people drop into us, however limited in expanse it may be, and what are we doing with those points of light, right? Never let someone mistake you for a victim. So as Me Too was happening and folks said, has it happened to you? Has it happened to you? My answer was no. It hasn't happened to me. Because I think that that sometimes some people are afraid, and that I'm not sheepish, and I don't fall into these gender identification roles, although it's quite obvious that I am a woman and I am the divine feminine. In business, it's quite obvious. But I don't have a lot of the same experiences. And in not having some experiences, I found that those things empowered me versus detracted from my power. So I need to be really honest about that. Curating physical health, working out, dancing. I think I'm a pretty fabulous dancer. Anybody who's on Facebook or Instagram with me may or may not agree, but I think that power is just feeling your body, taking care of yourself. And when people see that in enterprise, when they see that you are a person that takes care of yourself, they take care with you. They take care in the way it is that they approach you. I was never allowed to sulk. I think by the time I was 17, I was 5'8.5", and I was never allowed to sulk. It was always this. My mother always said, stand up straight. I remember her, even though my sister is 5'3" and I was 5'8", putting books atop our head and asking us to stand up straight. She cultivated us in a particular way. She said to me one day, pretend it's a crown. Right? So I take that. And when I recognize young women at work, early career women at work, I don't care if she's a receptionist or she cleans our bathrooms. And I take enough time to be grateful of who I am and gracious in giving to others. I'll say, is everything okay? When I notice that someone it's not a physical deformity, but they're sulking and it just looks like no one has acknowledged the fact that they're wearing a crown. Sometimes you have to tell people who it is that they are, who you see them as, whatever good you see in them, and hold them to believing it. And so I think that as a leader, I've done that very well. But I've also, taken the appropriate leadership classes. I've asked for help where it is that I needed it from my leaders. I work towards a well family. I have no children of my own. But I work towards a well family. I hold my siblings accountable for my nieces and nephews, and I don't allow them to parent alone. And so when I take that same, it's harmonious, I take that same way of being, guys, into work. And so while someone may be an IT leader, I don't see a staffer on the IT side suffering and not say, what can we do to assist? What can we do to help? Oh, that person is consumer research and insight. It's not your business. No, it is my business. I fully believe in a family. I fully believe in the whole. I also believe that the people you work with are those that you spend more time with than you do your own family. So the word love is powerful and real. And if you can't love them, what are you doing there? Right? So that's how I curate power, by really caring about people, not being selfish, not being tribal. for lack of better expression, being really, really communal. And I've been able to do that everywhere I've ever gone. It was easy at Girls Inc., right? It's a nonprofit, girl power, science, technology, engineering, and math, you know, getting girls to recognize their self-esteem and really use it in a way that's powerful. That was easy enough. But involvement in things that are not necessarily work, dedicating myself to community in church, from a small local nonprofit and serving on local nonprofit boards to volunteerism on large entities like the UN whenever we do, you know, we have the Women's Month in March. And so my involvement in business has never been different than my involvement in society. I've been really, really lucky right now to date to have symbiotic relationships. And I feel that that's what makes me powerful. What it is that I do with the relationships that I have. In the midst of having all these relationships, I have met my next boss, received support and sponsorship, and realize that in giving, I always get, but I don't set the timeline necessarily. I simply know the power of something called the law of reciprocity. So it's not always immediate, but I feel really good when I'm giving and when I'm pouring out. And I know that what it really is that the power in me is while I'm waiting, I'm creating. So especially in this time, I'm creating opportunities for other people. So it's how I've curated my power. I think part of it too is my courage as a leader to always tell the truth, to always stick by my values, to stick, you know, to stick high in my own personal integrity, and to say what I don't know, as well as give credit to others who've helped me along the way and helped me to contribute. So not taking credit for what it is that I haven't created. I'm not powerful by myself. Mentorship and sponsorship is always something that has stuck with me. I've always been considerate of the next generation and not just my contemporaries, and not just when it's convenient, especially now. I, over the past 5 years, have cultivated. So that's my power. It's my power now to cultivate others. I've cultivated 62 mentees, 62. And some of them are at a higher level than me. What I've always known is that this notion that just because because they have rank and all of that they're better off than you and they don't need anything. I've never found myself to consider myself weaker or not able to contribute. I am that person that believes that my contemporaries and those above me also need lifting. So I really do pour into everyone in the same way because we're part of the human family. And that, I think, has been the consistent thread through my career. You know, high fidelity social organizations, high social impact organizations are the organizations I've worked for. They're not nonprofits in any way. So power for me is knowing that I bear responsibility for where it is that I am right now, remembering the good of what it is that I came from and figuring out how to leverage that. Taking both my spiritual and my social needs with me into all the businesses and not working for anyone that won't be accepting of that, I think is super powerful as well. No matter what I need to provide for or who I need to provide for, the genesis of my responsibility has always been that I'm gonna retire to Tahiti, y'all. Like, I'll be naked on the beach in Tahiti. And so the only way I'm gonna do that is to leave the campgrounds that I enter better than I found it. You know, give a really solid handoff. I figured out how I would be a leader running track starting at age 12. So I tell you that story about daddy dropping me off, you know, and opening the glove compartment and said, don't let anybody mistake you for a victim. He didn't say daddy's gonna shoot him, but that, you know, I got the visual. And my dad would drop me off as early as 6 o'clock in the morning. And I'm a 12-year-old running track. And by the time I was in ninth grade, I was like my niece, I was early in ninth grade, so I was 13 and a half. And instead of being placed on JV, Coach Papke, I still remember her, talking about people who cultivate your power, said, your time is really excellent. You don't need to be running JV. We're going to put you on varsity. And my sister, my older sister, was pissed. She was a varsity runner. She was 11th grade. She was super pissed off about that because it was like, I don't need you stealing my light. I remember her saying to me in the locker room, I don't need you stealing my light. And I remember saying to her, we'll make mom and dad proud together. They're going to know what the Wallaces are, right? So what that instance taught me, that instance of cultivation, you know, even my sister being harsh, was that wherever you're presented with difficulty, you have to figure out where you can become a unified source or a source of unity, right? Because the truth of the matter is, if my sister is with me on that 4x4 relay, if you got a Wallace's first leg and a Wallace's third leg, like that's really going to reflect on that family. And so ultimately what it said to me is that, first of all, running a relay, you got somebody to hand off to, and they're depending on you to bring that baton along, hopefully not dropping it. But it also said to me that my power is in bringing other people along and doing it together. And so everything that I've ever done is about embodying a future, passing it on, leaving things better than I found it. And I think just living in that overall essence, being confident in the woman that I am by virtue of cultivation and how I've taken graciously the cultivation and curated in my personal life and my work life is how I've always leveraged my power.
Wow. Thank you so much, Adrienne. I have a few comments from people just like in the thread. Amanda found your quote, "I'm not power by myself," to be, you know, the mark of a true leader. And Lavacious Lou, so true, effective leaders realize and embrace that fact. Kieran said, great insight, while I'm waiting, I'm creating. So really powerful right there. Thank you so much. That was, I've got so much from that. That was goosebumps. So for our next part, we're going to do breakout rooms. I'm going to break you into groups of 4 to 5. What I want you to do is to introduce yourself, name, company, or previous role, or what you're looking for. Please note these conversations are private. We're not recording that. What's said in the room stays in the room. And the question I have for you guys is, when do you feel most powerful? What are you doing, right? Where are you? And who does it involve? So I will break you out into rooms and I will see you guys on the other side. Everyone, I hope you guys had a good breakout session.
We did.
I think pretty much everyone is almost back. Anyone kind of have an interesting story or insight from their group? Just either raise your hand or just unmute yourself and talk. Anyone?
I'm going to nominate Marie to tell you when she feels most powerful, because I think lots of folks.
No pressure, Marie.
Right. Considering that I was the guest speaker, right? I can nominate someone. Yeah.
You have the power.
Oh gosh, yeah, thank you. Thanks, Adrienne, for that. So I was the moments I feel most empowered. What I was saying is that there's typically 2 very distinct moments, but the one that is very sporadic, it's when I challenge my body. And it really is when I push my body to, not to the limits, but when I try to really push myself to maybe doing like a half marathon, or I did a triathlon. And it was in these moments when I really did that afterwards I felt very powerful, that I can do anything, that really great feeling. But the problem with it is that it really just happens in that moment and then it kind of dies away. That being said, it's really very, very thrilling. And I was explaining to Adrienne as well, also with my body, it was also when I gave birth that I really felt very powerful, because it really was this realization of using my body completely as a woman, as a mother, and it really gave that moment of power in myself. Though on a regular basis, the moment I feel very powerful is when people reach out and they seek out help, and I connect them with someone who can do that. And that's more on a regular basis that I get that moment of power, and I see that very regularly. So it's very fulfilling.
Awesome. I think what's powerful of that is like that mind-body kind of connection. And Adrian kind of talked about it too. And it's funny because at the beginning of the pandemic, I've mentioned in other Let's Talk, I'm kind of an open book, that I was going through depression. And it impacted me in so many ways because I didn't leave the apartment. It was like I was just in a spiral, right? And one of my neighbors, who's my community, right? She was like, "You're going running with me." So pretty much every morning for the past 2 months, we've been waking up 5:15 in the morning and running. And that, in terms of empowerment, that was a mind shift for me. So when you're thinking about power, it's not only your actions, but it's what you accept, what you don't accept, how you treat your body. All of these things are so important. So we're going to do another breakout group. I just want to be respectful of everyone's time and, end right at 6. So it's going to be short. Just introduce yourselves once again, and maybe kind of just, we talked about, power during this call, maybe explain how you can leverage it. What are the learnings, why or why not? And I'm going to break you guys out into smaller groups of maybe 1 or 2 or so. You guys can all unmute yourself, put yourself in gallery mode. Put yourself in gallery, and you can unmute yourself. I know that was really strange. I realized that I put you guys in the same room, so I was like, let me experiment and just randomly steal people and then move them to another room.
That was cool. That was cool.
I moved Kenny to your room, Adrian, so that you could kind of say hi to your
He
little brother.
He wasn't in our room.
What?
No. We don't want him in our, remember I told you how hard it was. I told you how hard it was and the pressure that I felt to have to be communal with my sister, being first leg and me being third leg. It was hard. That's my baby brother.
Aw.
Yeah.
Okay, guys.
Did you say that?
You did.
You say that.
I was told he was your more mature brother, not necessarily the baby brother, because he's the best.
He's the baby brother, but I even feel more powerful when you have family members, and that's his fiance, and I think that's my cute baby twin nephew. And so you feel real powerful when family says we're gonna pull over on the side of the road and log into Zoom to support you, right?
Exactly.
So it's that type of thing. It's that type of cultivation.
Family.
Yeah.
Well, you guys. Put yourself in gallery mode just so that you can see everyone. Unmute yourself. Thank you guys for making this call. Our next call is going to be with a co-founder of Eureka, Adrian. Remember, made the connection.
Yes.
With Melissa Bradley, and Melissa is a serial entrepreneur, investor, professor, and researcher. We're going to deal with the topic of how to deal with systemic bias. And I'll be posting content on the Community of 7 page in 24 hours. Adrian, if you can send me, because I think some folks had asked for your, is it a prayer or affirmation, whatever it is.
Absolutely.
Oh, the oath of manifestation.
Good morning.
And anything else you...
And don't send it to any of them individually. They need to log into Community of 7. Register. No. Register as communal members, because we're not doing anything tribal anymore, not in this day and time. And that's how you'll get access.
All right.
Okay. And then anything else that you think would be useful to kind of add, either go on the page and then add it or send it to me. I think that's about it. Thank you so much, Adrian. You're amazing.
Thank you,
everyone
Adrian.
Else.
Everyone.
It was great meeting you guys.
Have a great night. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Namaste.
Cheers.
Namaste.
You were
How did
so
you go
great.
earlier? Take care.
Thank
Bye.
you, dear.
Bye.
Thanks, Glenn, for having me.
Bye, everyone. See you.